I was looking at a YouTube video of a big YouTuber, and he did a
Yeah,
video on the epidemic of steroids in teenage bodybuilding
yes,
or whatnot. Terrible.
crazy.
When I saw that, I was like, these kids, if only they knew. And these are usually the ones that are making the not natty comments, I feel like. These are usually the ones
Yeah.
that have not been in the game long
You
enough.
look at the
They,
back double bicep picture that Natty News posted that I actually took myself in Seattle. It was a back double bicep of Benjamin Schuster and Frederick Ibsen, and it was nuts,
that
crazy. It
was
was one
you?
of those.
That was you.
Yeah, I was there. I was took that shot. But imagine, Kenny, imagine if at Boston we have Xena, who's a vet, so she works night shifts. She's a British champion. She's a pro figure athlete. She'd be a great person to actually have on the podcast, maybe someone in the future, and then we have like Ben Howard, who trains 3 times a week. We have Keefe, who trains 6 times a week. We have Adam, who trains 4 times a week. We don't just have 6 versions of me. Being, again, brutally honest, I'm fine being honest on the podcast. Thank you for having me back.
Of course, man. Between the last time we chatted, it's like you're doing bigger and bigger things. So it's hard not to bring you back on, which is great for natural bodybuilding. And I'm happy for you and what you're doing. And it's inspiring to see. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good stuff we could talk about today.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I've been staying up to date with all the podcasts, all the episodes. You've been doing a great job on your side. The magazine, I got my first subscription of that come through on email and I read it. That was with Francisco, right? I'm pronouncing his name
That's
right.
it.
Yeah, I read that and yeah, dude, that's fantastic. What you're doing there is awesome. Like, I really enjoyed reading that.
Bro, I appreciate that a lot. I'm glad you are enjoying it. This is a great opportunity, of course, for those tuning in. If you haven't checked that out, Longevity Muscle Magazine, links are always in the show notes. So it's great to get that feedback from someone like yourself. And yeah, I appreciate that. And we're going to have to get more from you in there too, of course. Actually, we did a mega article on AJ. So if you want to check that out, once again, Longevity Muscle Magazine, that's where you can get the top articles from the top natural bodybuilders in the world. I wanted to talk to you, AJ, about your natural bodybuilding worldwide. Why don't we start there? Because,
Sure.
yeah, last time we spoke, I feel like maybe it was like when you were just kickstarting things with that, and it's grown a great deal since we spoke last. So let's start there and talk about what you're doing over there and how many athletes you have now, a part of that, and just what that's about and where people can find that, like what's good there, basically.
Yeah, sure, sure. So, I mean, NBW started off in 2022. It was my idea to form a platform that allows natural bodybuilders to share their progress, have a community. That's the big thing, is have a community and kind of bring back what was great about old school forums. Like we had UK Muscle over here in the UK. We had Natural Muscle, which used to be an old forum. I think there's something absolutely fantastic about forums. It's great on Instagram to have a feed, but nothing quite matches being able to read. Like my off-season log on NBW, I think it was like 3,000 posts or something like that from conversation thread. And that's just nuts, to look back at that and like see all the decisions that I made, see how I was feeling, what I was doing. You just can't get that from a feed anymore. And no one wants to read long form stuff on Instagram. It's just all short form stuff everywhere now. So to keep people that like longer form content and forum style stuff, keep them in the mix and also allow them just to ask questions. We have like people that have come up to me and said, I used the NBW site to ask the right questions and go through all the courses. And I prepped my whole team of athletes based off the information that you provided on the site and taking them to, pro cards and doing super well on stage. And to be able to give that at such a low cost, $9.99 a month is exactly why I did it. Because why I was getting to a point where I kind of hit top end of where I want to be with my own athletes, my own roster. If I was to take on more, I'd either compromise the quality or the enjoyment, or something would just not go in the right direction with coaching. So I needed to be able to create something where it was a platform, a community where I could build in my own content, my own information, my own course structure, and then also have other athletes, great athletes come on board, add their own thoughts and opinions with different perspectives, very much like you do on the podcast. You get people with very different views and perspectives. You'll get one person, trains 7 days a week and you get another guy who trains 3 times a week, both get great results. And it just allows people to open up their minds to what is going to be the best thing for them and their lifestyle and how they can make natural bodybuilding work for them. So that's why I built in the athletes, because we have very varied athletes, people who work within the sport, people who don't. We have Zena who's a vet, so she works night shifts. She's a British champion. She's a pro figure athlete. She'd be a great person to actually have on the podcast, maybe someone in the future. And then we have like Ben Howard, who trains 3 times a week. We have Keefe, who trains 6 times a week. We have Adam, who trains 4 times a week. We don't just have 6 versions of me. Put it that way. We
Right.
have very different perspectives. But yeah, it's grown really well as a community. We've done things like, have posing seminar meetups. I've obviously started doing some more seminars worldwide over the last year. I did one in Italy. I did one in Vienna, and that was just me presenting. But hopefully in the future, we'll get the whole team out to different countries and start presenting and making more kind of brand awareness worldwide is definitely a big goal, hence the name. But, I think probably the biggest thing to touch on since we last spoke was the introduction of me becoming a show promoter with NBW. So,
Yes.
we're gonna have our first contest promoted solely by NBW, but in collaboration with the UKDFBA. So the UKDFBA judging panel, the UKDFBA rules, the UKDFBA drug testing will be integrated into that show. And Lee is helping me a lot on the back end. But in terms of, the actual promotion, the venue, the lighting, the live stream, the media packages, everything else is NBW. And I'm super excited about that. So that's in October 11th and 12th. And that's the biggest event of the year for me in terms of what I'm aiming for as a promoter and kind of, with where the business is heading as well.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, the event that you guys are going to host, I actually did an article on that in the magazine. Maybe some of you guys
Oh,
have caught
amazing.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, who are subscribed if you caught that. And that's a big thing because, of course, okay, there's a few things actually we can touch on here.
Ah,
You
sure.
mentioned the UKDFBA, and
Mm.
I know you have some history with the BNBF. So I'm curious why you went that direction versus you where Vicky McCann is, who I just spoke with, by the way, and we're about to kick off our women's series. So it's cool that you mentioned Z
Amazing.
Zena. Zena, is that her
Yeah,
name?
yeah,
Doc?
yeah. Coachina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Coachina.
So
So
that will
she's
be.
very close to the BNBF. She's got a DFAT Pro card. She judges for the BNBF. So yeah, I mean
Oh,
to touch on that, Vicky, McCann, Guy, amazing people. I've been lucky to have great conversations with them over many, many years. I did my first ever show with the BNBF. And, I think over the course of time, the reason why I went with the UKDFBA is purely as a byproduct of the relationship that I built with Lee. So Lee Kemp, who
ah,
runs the UKDFBA, he's been one of my closest friends for a long period of time. So you've got a really close knit relationship with him, and he's got a lot of the same visions, same ethics as pretty much everyone involved in natural bodybuilding, but definitely aligned with my thoughts and my path. And NBW has actually been sponsoring UK DFBA shows since 2022. We've been putting a lot of money back into the sport already. I think over the last probably 3 years, put circa 15 to 20,000 pounds back into the sport through NBW sponsorship, especially with the World Championships. When Lee ran the World Championships in 2023, we put a lot of funding into that. So I've always been behind him. But yeah, the BNBF are also a great federation to compete in. And you know what? Like the big thing that we want to do with this show, the NBW International, is really try to start more of a unification within natural bodybuilding. Try and bring people together. Try and invite, people that like again with NBW as a site, Keefe, Adam, Ben, Zena, Ella, Loz, we all compete in different federations. We're not really tied down to anyone, but ultimately, when push comes to shove for a show like this, we have to affiliate with a federation, and UKDFBA is definitely just the right choice for us.
okay, that's understandable. Great explanation, and I'm sure that
Yeah.
clears up a lot of what I was thinking, and maybe what the listeners were thinking too. Because, like you mentioned, your first show was the BNBF, if I remember correctly. I want to say it was juniors, right?
My first ever show was back in 2014. It was in Derby, and it was a BNBF qualifier. It was the BNBF Midlands. It was
Okay.
just one of the regional shows. So the way that typically, I mean, the BNBF still worked this way, but for a long time in the UK, it was you do a regional show, you place in the top three, you go through to the British finals. Yeah, when I competed, they were still working with memberships where you had to basically send off your membership in the post, and you get back a little membership card. Obviously now everything's all like very much virtual and online. But yeah, it feels like a long time ago that was my first ever show. So yeah, it
Wow.
was great.
So talk about the big reason you started the NBW International. Was that because, like, as far as growing natural bodybuilding, I mean, that's self-explanatory. But what really drove it? Like, what was the biggest reason for that? You mentioned you're putting a lot of money. I'm assuming that's money from the business, from the membership site that goes back into the UKDFBA slash NBW event that you're about to run. So yeah, talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that. What was the big reason why, the big motivator?
So the big thing was sitting down at the end of 2023. I was having a early Christmas dinner with Lee and his amazing wife Amy, and Lee put it across to the table that he was potentially thinking about starting to promote less shows. This is something that's Lee has discussed many times online. I'm not speaking for him. This is not news. This is old stuff. If people have been paying attention to his journey, his story, and he said, yeah, I would like to maybe move away from promoting as many shows. He was doing a lot, and he was under a lot of stress, a lot of stress. So he has a very busy career. He does not make money out of natural bodybuilding. The amount of money that Lee has got from the federation and put back into the athletes to pay for them to go to international competitions, he could have paid off his entire house. His entire house, he could have paid off the entire mortgage. That's how much money he's put back into the athletes as a non-profit running federation with the UKDFBA. So Lee's been doing all of this for like past over a decade for no profit. It's just a passion project for him. Did you have a
Wow.
question, Kenny?
It will more so like I wanted to pause before we drift away from this. You mentioned
Yeah.
non-for-profit, right? That's big. People need
Yeah.
to know
It's
that.
a
So the
non-profit.
UKDFBA is also non-profit, just like the DFAC is also non-profit.
UKDFBA is a non-profit. Yeah.
UKDFB is nonprofit. Yeah, but again, because this is I'm still learning here about the UK side of things because again, I just spoke with Vicky and she was talking about or stressing the fact that the UK the DFAC is non for profit. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's news to me because of course, if I understand correctly, not every organization, especially like the
Yeah.
big ones, WNBF, PNBA, those are for profit. If I and correct me if I'm wrong. If
Yeah. I mean,
someone's listening, hit me up and tell me that that's not the case. But from my understanding,
they will be.
there's profits involved in the WNBF and
Yeah.
PNBA.
And just for reference as well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing
And
wrong with
if
that.
anything,
True.
no, there's nothing wrong with that. And if anything, I
True.
think there's a lot of things that are good about that, Kenny. I think there's a lot of things that are good about making profit out of something that you also love. Because when push comes to shove, you're going to have some degree of financial reward out of the hours you're going to have to graft. And you're also, if you get profit, where can that profit go? Better shows, better promotion, better lighting, better media, better everything. So Lee had that discussion with me. It was a great discussion, and it got me pumped, got me excited. So we started to sort of think the whole of really 2024, like what can we do? And I didn't want to run multiple shows. I came to the conclusion that I said to Lee, I was like, right, I don't want to run 3, 4 shows. I want to run really one very, very, very good show and have it be a show that people look up to and really want to have it as part of their season, and also form a pro division, open pro division, any natural pro card that's a reputable natural pro card. You've earned it in appropriate settings. You have not gone to a show and been the only one there. Yes.
Pause on that. Talk about
Basically,
that.
yeah, the
T
description of that is that okay, DFAC, WNBF, INBA, PNBA, those top pro cards. Those are the ones that we're going to be looking out for.
okay.
ANBF, these top federations. If you've earned it and you were the only competitor in your show and there was no one else there, we'd be digging into that and we'd be finding out, right, okay, this is not an appropriate pro level to enter the contest. It's going to be an
Mhm.
appropriate pro level. Everyone in the pro classes will be vetted. That's what I wanted to do. The vision became clear. And yeah, we started to get the wheels in motion, started to look at venues. I wanted to use a venue that was close to Ultraflex in Rotherham because it's a huge magnet already for international competitors. It's obviously very close to me as well, so I can make make the venue perfect and not have any stress about having to travel multiple times to go and view it, things like that. We got a great venue, and I've started to basically build what I like to think of as like the natural bodybuilding team of Avengers of all the people that I think are the best in the industry at what they do. And that covers everything: media, tanning, hair and makeup, audio and visual, live streaming, everything. Everything you can imagine is going to be, in my opinion, the best people for it. And now that's also formed as a result of, I've been going to shows across the UK and internationally. I think I've been to every single WNBF World since 2017, bar the COVID. I've been to INBA, PNBA, Europeans, Universe, Olympia, everything. And, when I go to those things, it's the same thing that Lee has done for even longer than me. We take notes. We take notes and we think about things that from an athlete standpoint and a coach and a promoter, what can we do even better? And we're trying to facilitate all of those things for the athletes, the coaches, the spectators at the NBW. So yeah, that's where we're
I
headed.
I love that. And I have to stop and pause you on this one thing that you mentioned about the WNBF Worlds, how you do go almost
Sure.
every year.
Mm.
And I have a question that I don't know the answer to, and that is,
Mm.
are you a WNBF, have you competed in the WNBF ever?
Yeah, I have right here. I have I have
Oh,
my
fantastic.
yeah, 2017. You won't be able, it won't probably won't
I
focus.
can't read that. No.
Yeah, but it says 2017 IMBF Amateur World Championships first place.
Oh,
So that
right.
was
That's
that
right.
was yeah, that was the junior world title back when they had juniors because they don't have juniors anymore.
Right on. That's right. And you know how I remember that now because of the website. It's on your website, which is not updated. Your About
Yeah,
Me
it's
bio.
old. Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I saw the IMBF, and I always forget to link that with the WMBF. I just think WMBF pros, right? But the IMBF is
Yeah.
the amateur, and that's what you won the world championships in the juniors. That's right.
Yeah.
Amazing,
Yeah.
man.
So
So, don't
yeah,
you win a pro card for that though?
no, no, you don't. No, no. I
Oh,
was
okay.
definitely not at I was definitely not at pro standard when I competed there as a junior anyway. So yeah, and then obviously by the time that I next competed, I mean my ultimate goal was to turn, WNBF pro, and that was what I always envisioned. And but that by the time I next competed, the UKDFBA I think we'd maybe have this conversation before, but the UKDFBA had changed to
Right.
INBA, PNBA affiliation,
That's right.
due to various different things happening.
We spoke about
And
that, by the way. We spoke about that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we did in the last episode. So yeah, that then happened, and the goals changed. So and they pivoted for me, and I think from my perspective, again, with moving into this contest season specifically, there are parts of me that would like to try and get WNBF pro status and compete in some of their pro shows because if I'm honest with you, Kenny, they have the most competitive pro shows. They have the most prestigious, in my opinion, world title. I think the being again brutally honest, I'm fine being honest on the podcast. I think the WNBF Galaxy will be a huge, tremendous step in the right direction for them because the WNBF Worlds needs to be refreshed up to the modern standards of media and lighting and all of those things. And I think the Galaxy show will, and also the prize money that they seem to be offering at that show seems phenomenal, like over $100,000 prize fund, which is just tremendous. Yeah, I think that'll be a huge step in the right direction. And as a show promoter myself, even though that show and WNBF are quote unquote competition, I only see these things as a great thing because if it brings up the level and it brings up what we have as a standard in natural bodybuilding, it's only going to make other people work harder to make shows better. And then as a result, our whole industry improves. So I see it as a huge, huge positive thing. I think, yes, there's been, a good few changes in natural bodybuilding as of the last like couple of years, 3, 4 years. But I think there were all changes that needed to happen. I think there were all wake up calls for people to start working harder at producing better shows and also giving the athletes more of what they want, which, let's be honest, in today's day and age is extremely good media, extremely good lighting. You should not travel thousands of miles to compete in a show and then have better lighting in the bathroom than the stage. That should not
That's
happen.
crazy.
You
That's
know, like
crazy.
that's just not right. You know, it takes money, time, and effort to get these things right. But that's what you use the people's entry fees for, is to put the time and the money in the right places, and lighting, media packages, and allowing the athletes to see the hard work that they've put in their pictures and their videos and in the shots that we get and we post all over social is so important. I mean, that's why also pictures go also viral. You know, like if you look at the back double bicep picture that Natty News posted that I actually took myself in Seattle, it was a back double bicep of Benjamin Schuster and Frederick Ibsen, and it was nuts,
That
crazy.
was
It's
you?
one of those.
That was you.
One of Yeah, I was there. I was took that shot, and I just shoot them across the Leroy and give him some because we're close friends, and that's fine. It's not a problem to me. But like that shot, I think like 15, 16,000 likes. But imagine, Kenny, imagine if at Boston the lighting was the same as Seattle, and I took a back double bicep picture of Oscar and Babacar, it would have blown the hell up. It would have been like he already blew the internet up, even with really not great lighting. He would
Wow.
have blown the internet up even more. But that's what we need, because when you get people like that to compete, you need really good lighting to be able to show what these guys actually have. And unfortunately, in that set of circumstances, the lighting was really not appropriate.
Damn. Yeah, and I was chuckling, but it is a serious issue because you guys are putting in
Yeah.
lots of time, effort, and again, yeah, of course, money, but also some of you guys are traveling from the UK to go to the States, and it's like, bro, the least these people can do is get the
Even
lighting
further,
right. Even
Australia,
further.
like my client Nick, he traveled from Australia to compete. You know, he spent best part of 1.5 days traveling and had lighting better on his 10 miles away from his house, a local show when he competed earlier in the season. And the
Terrible.
worst thing as well is like people like maybe Dirk as well. He's a great example. You know, Dirk will save his best until the end. So he wants to see what his best looks like, and also he's, known for his horrendously grainy condition. And when it's not the lighting that you need, you don't even see that, and it's not as impressive, which then is painful because you've dug off that extra 500 grams of body weight that makes the difference, and you can't see it. So that's just one of the non-negotiable things that I have in place, is that needs to be a must, regardless of like, we've been thinking about what background do we want? What screen do we want? It's like, I don't care what screen we have. I don't care what background we have. I care that whatever lighting we have, it's 100% perfect for pictures, for people to see when they're in the venue, for the live stream, for everything. The lighting is above all. And it's when you look at like old footage of a 2010 Arnold Classic or something. They just have, or the Detroit Pro, which Foad did. It's like a black backdrop with like, yeah, a screen, but you can't see the screen in the pictures. You just see the black backdrop. It's like perfect. So it looks so clean and so good. But when there's so much going on in the background with a banner or like loads of changing lights, and you're working too hard to make a production behind the stage, you then lose the lighting, and then the whole purpose of having a bodybuilding show is to show the physiques off rather than show an advertisement off in the background, in my opinion.
That's it. That's facts. Yep. I'm glad that you brought that up. Hopefully, there's someone listening that's part of this issue and is going to take some real, action with that. That's
Well, I say that also, but Kenny, I also have to, before I speak, I have to prove it. So, I think it's important to realize that, well, I'm learning now how much money and investment goes into this, because it's a lot. Like to get the best guys for the lighting, to get the best guys to understand lighting. Like the other day, I was on an hour Zoom call. We were just talking about the quote for all the audio and visual stuff, going through different products, what we need, what we don't need. I'm learning, I'm still learning, but I've employed the right people to teach me this so that I can just invest the money and they do the thinking. But nevertheless, I still, I can't just sit here and say, oh, you have to have this, you have to have that. But I'd like to think that if people look back at this podcast and they've seen the show in October, they'll be like, yeah, AJ was right. And I'll happily be proven wrong if I get it wrong, and I'll learn a lesson. But yeah, I think it's you just need the right people around you, really, and the right investment.
right. Well, who helped you with that, by the way? Was that Lee from the UKDFBA with as far as lighting for this show, or?
So right now I'm working with Rising Productions. They're a company from Austria, and they have for
Oh,
the last few years helped out tremendously at the AMBF, which Vicky is a part of, and also the Evo Classic. And both of those shows, I'd say, probably have the best media and lighting in the globe. I'd say the media package, the live stream, the coverage, the lighting, the spectacle of the show is like almost Olympia standard that they're
wow.
running at these, yeah, the
Yeah.
AMBF Elite Pro and the Evo Classic. It's way above some of the stuff. Now, BNBF, I must admit, BNBF for many, many, many years have had some of the best lighting in the UK at their shows and probably Europe as well. Guy, who runs a lot of the stuff there, is incredible at what he does. He's also a mastermind of that kind of stuff. So yeah, yeah, they'll continue to have amazing show lighting, and it's just something that just yeah, like I said, needs the right people. He's an absolute mastermind amongst a very variety of different things. The part of the reason why I came on board to do this is to take some of the burden off his shoulders. I don't want to be the person that's always asking him this, because part of the reason why he wanted me to help was to remove some of that stress and focus on other aspects of his life. So I'm trying to help in that shape and form.
I love that what you mentioned there, and that goes back to what you said before with the profits. Like as far as some people think, okay, non-for-profit and versus these some of these organizations that do make a profit. Well, there's advantages to that because then they
Yeah.
can put all their energy and attention into that. Unless they're, of course, if you're running a non-for-profit, but you have the financial means to do it and you're well off and finances are not an issue. That's a very different
Yeah.
thing than someone who's trying to make a living on the side of also running potentially an empire of with like the WNBF, for example. Imagine if that was non-for-profit, I probably wouldn't have lasted as long as it did. Maybe, maybe. So
Yeah, I
there's
wouldn't. Yeah.
it's one of those things where there's nothing wrong and nothing to be ashamed of for trying to make a living off of your passion and what you love doing. Like AJ, you're a perfect example of that. You have your coaching, you're doing the
Yep.
membership site now, and you're able to take,
Yep.
I'm assuming there's profits there, but put it back into natural bodybuilding, a portion of it or all of
Yeah.
it, whatever makes you sleep well at night. And that, I think that's the main thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, all of it would be a problem because I wouldn't have this house and I wouldn't have that webcam that just shut off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have no money, Kenny. But I think yeah, a good proportion of, especially with a new business, like for example, NBW, a large proportion of what I've made through NBW just go straight back into the business, whether that's new clothing or a new bunch of videos or building up for the show. It's just constant reinvestment. When you've got something new and you want to make it bigger, the bottom line is kind of reinvestment over many, many years that makes something last a long time.
Right, right. And the clothing, you guys just did a drop, right? I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
Of course, someone who's also right now we're about to launch Longevity Muscle, the clothing as well.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that you're doing that and have been doing that, and it's been an inspiration as well. And talk a little bit about that, where people can get your drop, the clothing itself. I don't want to plug it for you, so it's better if it comes from you.
Oh, sure. I appreciate that, mate. I'm glad you're doing some stuff too because people will definitely rep it. Like enough people listen to the podcast, people will definitely to start to rep the clothing. But yeah, so we actually work with quite a local manufacturer here like 10 miles away that I formed a good relationship with, and he's a young lad with a great team, and he produces really high quality stuff, and so he's been able to really like take things up a notch for us because we were working with previously overseas distributors, and it was just very slow and yeah, it wasn't a great service either. So we've taken up things a notch over the last couple of years. Things have been really good with the drops. People can check it out at nbwclothing.com. It's just super simple URL. And yeah, like it just helps grow the brand. And when I'm able to go into the gym, and there was a few days like last week with people coming across from different countries, some of my clients, some not. There was like four, five, six different people like wearing NBW in the gym, just in the gym that I train in. And I'll get a picture from a client, they'll spot someone else wearing it, and they'll, send me across a picture. And it's little things like that make me very happy to see the brand taking some space, and then people might think, oh, what's that? They'll search NBW and then they'll see, okay, the site, and then they'll see the show. And, if that brings one or two more people to natural bodybuilding, and potentially even just realizing that natural bodybuilding exists, because Kenny, like people I think still don't know we exist sometimes. We're
Mm.
still very small needle in the haystack of bodybuilding. It's getting better and better, but like the haystack is like mostly covered by assisted bodybuilding or the Olympia and the IFBB, and that's something that I want to continue to try and pursue is getting natural bodybuilding just bigger in general. And that's something that the clothing definitely helps with that because it gives people a brand to present, image to present.
That's so true. And obviously, you're rocking the shirt right now. It's really nice. It's the oversized tee, right? And that's in style now, I think. A lot of the bodybuilders love to wear that. Used to be the tight-fitted ones. Now it's the oversized ones. And it's not about the clothing, but what it represents. Like you just mentioned, it represents like something bigger and obviously to spread the awareness of natural bodybuilding and what you're doing with NBW. And, I was looking at a YouTube video of a big YouTuber, not Will Tennyson. It was like another guy, and they look like brothers. I don't, and
Oh
anyways, he
yeah,
did
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? James West, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
his
I
name.
know. Yeah, yeah, Jesse James.
Jesse James, that's it. And he did a
Yeah,
video
that's it.
on the epidemic of steroids in teenage bodybuilding
Yes.
or whatnot. Terrible.
Crazy.
When I saw that, I was like, these kids, if only they knew. And these are usually the ones that are making the not natty comments, I feel like. These are usually the ones
Yeah.
that have not been in the game long enough. They're doing this, they've jumped on the cycle really early on, and then they think it's absolutely impossible to look like whoever it is that is, a top level pro. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a shame, man. It's really unfortunate. And I was lucky that I came across Team 3D MJ, Nick Wright, Matt Ogus early on the YouTube
Yeah, me
sphere.
too.
Right. I know your
Yeah.
story because actually I just tuned into the episode you did with Steve Hall. Great episode. Highly recommend people go
Thank you.
check that out as well. And you were talking about how your first interaction with natural bodybuilding was like through Nunez, right? Like Alberto Nunez was a big influence on you, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely Nunez, definitely Matt Ogus, definitely the 3MJ bunch. Like all of those guys, I was really hooked on following, and I certainly learned a huge amount from just simply just grasping a load of stuff off YouTube, podcasts, everything. And yeah, very grateful to have that influence because yeah, if I'm honest, like it's very easy to get sucked into following different people, and then you become a part of that kind of that kind of niche, and then you go in that direction, and that's fine if that's what it ends up being for you, or that's part of your goal set. But there's a lot of cool things you can achieve in natural bodybuilding, and that will continue to be the way, and even more so over the next 5 to 10 years. I think it's the opportunities are only going to get better and better.
For sure. Absolutely. Down the road, like what do you think you would like what's a big event that you would love to just take that title? Like, what is it for you, like down the road, just for fun? Like, if we were to talk about this and say you were able to do season B, like when that time comes, maybe it's when you're 35, 36, when the coaching kind of settles. What's that event going to be in season B, bro?
I mean, I'd love to say it would like for if I was an athlete and I was thinking, I'd love to say it would be the NBW at that time period. I'd love to say that that would be a show that would be someone's on everyone's radar to win the title and get that pro class. I'd love to say that. I think right now, if I look at like right now, this is not including shows that are upcoming. This is not
Right.
including shows that haven't happened yet. A WNBF world title, amazing.
Okay.
AMBF Elite Pro, amazing. Julian Brewski won the AMBF Elite Pro. Second was
Right.
Daniel Kubik. Third was Ben Lloyd. The top five then was, Keefe, Ramon.
Oof. That's a
These
tough
guys,
lineup.
these,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
these guys are crazy. These guys are amazing. Like that would be something amazing to be a part of is be in a lineup like that at some
Mm.
point. I'd be lying if I said one of my goals this year basically, obviously in 2020, I got offered the INBA, PNBA pro card. We've had this conversation before, but I never took it and never competed as a pro because I wanted to achieve more amateur titles. That's always an option you have as a pro is you get the card, but you don't use it. You don't compete. You compete again as an amateur. I also felt I wasn't ready to be a pro, and I
Mm.
definitely believe that I was right at that point to not do it. 21, I got the title that I wanted. This year, with the upgrades and the improvements, I'd be lying if I said one of my goals is number one, win the world title that I just narrowly missed out on in 2021. I came second the world championships in 2021. So number one, that's a really big goal of mine. I'd like to achieve a world title with the INBA PNBA. I'd like to achieve that. And I'd like to take pro status and I'd really like to be able to compete with Ben Howard in the pro lineup at the Worlds because he's going to do the Worlds this year. We're going to go out together. I'd love to be able to compete with him because I don't know whether this might be one of Ben's. one of Ben's last preps. I don't know if it'll be his last. I don't want to speak to him. I don't want to speak for him on that front. It doesn't look like it will be his last because I think he's really loving it. But if it was and I missed out on that, I'd feel a bit gutted. So I'd love to be able to make that happen because Ben was one of my first major inspirations in natural bodybuilding, you know, especially in terms of seeing up close in person what true top tier condition looks like. First guy I've ever seen it on. First guy I've gone, what the hell is that? And if I got the opportunity to be on the same stage as him, that would be amazing. So those are my big goals this year, and I'm working really hard to be able to try and achieve them. And you can never control the outcome, Kenny. You know, like you can turn up your best, and you could go up against four mini Ronnie Colemans. You never know. So I'm proud of how the off season went. I'm very proud of the way that I've structured this prep. It's been a hell of a lot better than the last two, and I'm confident I can just be a lot better than last time. So if those goals end up being achieved, fantastic.
I love that. And I love the camaraderie within NBW as well, especially with the guys you
Yeah.
brought on, because like you mentioned with Ben Howard, he's been an inspiration, imagine for you, but even like for someone like myself who isn't even in the UK. So he's gone like, he's not local, man. That guy's like global now. It's
He
crazy.
is, he is,
Yeah.
he
And
is. He
of
doesn't
course,
realize it though.
no, no. I think of the big thing that he did was that obviously put him on the map for me was the WNBF World Lightweight title that he won, right? That was huge. When he went up against Clement, the year he went up with Clement Yearwood, who won that year? I'm trying to think who won the overall. Do you remember? 2018?
Babacar on the overall.
Babacar.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. And there was
yeah.
one other person in that class. I can't remember who it was though. It was Babacar, Clement, and Ben, and there was one other person in the heavyweight, but I
In
can't
the
remember who it was.
overall,
Yeah, the
in the
heavyweight.
overall, I
You
think it
remember who?
might have been Kendall. Yeah, I think it might have been
Kendall.
Kendall Richmond. I think that was
That's
his
really
first year. First year
okay.
winning the world title yeah, it was his first year winning the world title in his class, and that was 2018. And in 2019, he won the class again, but then he took the overall in
Got
2019.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some history right there.